sometimes in life, it's critical to allow yourself to try something instead of always wondering what might have been. I met some people and they were telling me the story about a friend of theirs who their dream was to eventually get to retirement age, buy a camper, like a giant RV, and to drive around the country. And this is how they were going to spend the next 15 years of their life, right? Retire at 65. So they save and they save and they save and they save, and eventually they get to the retirement age. They go out and buy this beautiful camper. They're on the road 1 week. And they hate it, right? I mean, they hate it. Better would have been to try it for a week when you were 40 and realize that's actually not the dream, right? So I try and tell people when it comes to their big five for life, allow yourself to sample it and make sure that it really is what you're looking for.
So first of all, let me explain. You are one of my favorite book authors because what you do, you are capable of designing simple stories that touch people very deeply, very emotionally, and your stories are able to send them into a certain direction in life. So you ask the important questions, and people find their answers. And even I read many motivational books. I know spiritual books. I read a lot.
Yeah.
But you touch me.
Awesome.
And that's wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. That is the goal. It's to try and create something that is compelling and life-changing and entertaining at the same time, right? And so it's been a fun ride. The Big Five for Life in particular is a story that tends to hit people really deeply, really emotionally, especially at the end. And I've had some really fun experiences. I remember I was doing some work with the FBI one time, and these really tough, FBI guys, and guy pulled me aside at the start, and he's like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I cried at the end of that book."
Oh yeah. How do you feel at these moments?
I said I hope so. That was my intention, was to create something emotional enough that you would feel that emotion, right? If I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. So. Also yesterday evening, so we had this World Leadership Summit. Barack Obama was on stage. Many other fantastic speakers were on stage. You were on stage. But I had the impression that at the end, there were so many fans just running to you. And they wanted to talk to you. And they told you stories about their lives. And you signed books until 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning, yeah. You know what I think it is? I was actually reflecting on that. So certainly the response to Barack Obama and his time on the stage was fantastic, and people were applauding a ton, and they definitely connected with his message. You could feel the audience, really energetically there. And then, I had this amazing experience where we got done, and somebody had yelled my name, actually, is what it was, and we were all about to leave the stage. We were doing that group photo, and so somebody yelled my name. I turned around, and so I hopped off the stage, and the next thing I knew, I had like 500 people there all doing selfies and signing and the rest of that. And I think what it is that Barack Obama has touched our lives in his role as a leader, and by setting an example of compassion and an interest in helping other people. I think my books have enabled people to do something dramatic in their own life, right? So it has caused a shift in their own life, which has impacted them on a very personal level, where in a role as a political leader, it impacts you, but on a much bigger, like, oh, that's nice level. And so, I think that's why the fans wanted to have the moment afterwards, was to just get a little quality time embracing that moment. It was awesome, absolutely awesome.
So what a feeling is it if you travel around in the world and you come to Cologne? I mean, we're here in Cologne. You live in the USA. You just came here. Did you expect that so many fans are here, or do you say, okay, that's my comfort zone? They all come to me. They all want to have a book signed. It must feel very special if you are in a foreign place and people say, I read your books, you changed my life.
It's constantly humbling, because I'm just me. I'm just a guy, right? And I don't put people on pedestals. I don't put people underneath pedestals either. I see everybody as we're all human beings on this planet. And I firmly believe that we each have something very special to offer. And that's part of the trick of life, is to figure out what is your gift? What is it that you have to offer? And that may be that you go do something that makes you feel extraordinarily fulfilled. It's not that you're necessarily building homes for someone or doing something that's outwardly beneficial for others. But the fact that we are authentic, whatever that means to us, is what inspires other people to be authentic, right? And so, it's constantly humbling when people come up and tell you their stories. I had a young guy come up yesterday. He was in his probably early 20s, and he told me that his father had passed away, and he was crying as he told me the story. And I don't know him, he doesn't know me, so he's allowing himself to be very raw in that moment to tell me this story. And he said, I read the Big Five for Life book, and I honestly feel like that's what helped me get through this. And I stood up, we hugged each other, and such a powerful moment. I could have never imagined earlier in my life that I would ever have the gift of being able to interact with people in the way that I get to now. So I'm humbled and honored.
So let's go back some years in your life.
Yeah.
You had not the typical life of an author. You
No.
started working very early at the age of 12.
Yeah, I started working when I was 12 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? And you had to struggle a lot at that
Yeah,
time.
I mean, when you're at a certain income level, you have to go to work early, right? And so I knew that my dream was to go to university someday, and in the States it's quite expensive. And so I knew that if I was going to fulfill that dream, that I had to start very early and try and make it. So I did, and I'm not a huge guy, right? But the early jobs that I had tended to be very physical labor jobs. I remember one summer I was carrying concrete blocks. They were using jackhammers to break up
But not
concrete.
as a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like you're working in a company, right? So
Yeah.
you just tell someone, hey, I'll do that job. How much do you pay me,
So you were born in Chicago. Did you have these jobs?
I was outside of Chicago.
Yeah? Okay.
In the Midwest of the United States.
Okay.
And, and my
Who
parents,
hired you? Who hires a 12-year-old boy to carry around blocks?
They see you're willing to work hard and that you're energetic, and you tell them I really need the money, and good people will do that. I painted houses. I did every crazy physical labor job you could probably imagine.
That's interesting. You say good people are willing to hire people, because in our German value system, they would be it would be like the devils. They exploit their workers.
It's a different story if you're
it's
forcing a 12-year-old kid to work in a factory, right?
Yeah.
But if the 12-year-old kid comes up and says, "Hey man, I'm trying to save for college. I want to go to college someday, and I'm willing to carry the concrete blocks for you guys," and that's a different story, right? Yeah. So they're two different realities.
That's fantastic. These are very two different styles of thinking about it. In the German way, we confused if somebody hired a 12-year. But on the other hand, okay, you work, and that's good. We
But let's change the context a little bit. This job happened to be something that was physical labor. Let's say that you have a passion for film, right? Because we're looking at cameras here. Yeah. Let's say you have a passion for film and you're 12 years old, and you say, hey, would you guys be willing to let me come in for the summer and learn what you do about video editing, about filming? And I don't care if I just stand on the sidelines and watch and learn. But how awesome that would be. That means you're accelerating your path. Why would we not want to enable a child who is passionate about film to start embracing film? Spielberg was occupying a studio occupying an office in Universal Studios. He was 17, right? So, I think if kids have a direction that they want to go, they're passionate about it, and it's their choice, everything we can do to help them is a plus.
So this is one of the main motives of your life and of your work, to find your purpose of life, and then pursue your happiness, your personal happiness, and there won't be any work in life.
I think so let me be clear about that it's not always going to be roses, right? And it's not always going to be easy. When I write a book, the process of writing the book tends to be very creative and flow. Mm-hmm. That said, when I am done with the book and I print it out and I start the editing process, I will go through a manuscript 50 times. And I will go through and literally I will make sure every single word is the word that I want. And that is not easy at all. That's painstaking left brain work, right? But to me, I owe it to the readers who are they're making a decision, right? I'm investing money to buy this book. And granted, I think that's a cheap investment compared to buying 3 cups of coffee, but nonetheless, I have an obligation as the creator of that book to do my very best. Because this could be my only shot to change their life, is the way that I look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I go through painstakingly, and and sometimes it's a sentence, and it's pretty good, right? I mean, it's 80% of the way there. But I won't go to print until I've got it, and then I'll sometimes have to put it aside for a week and come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes. But I won't go to release until I'm happy with every single word that's in there.
So it's good to hear that from you, because when I write, I wrote some books too, and I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I know it exactly. And sometimes you 2 sentences.
Yeah.
It takes you 30 minutes. No, no,
Right.
So I'm not the only strange one.
No, and it's contrarian. People ask me all the time, how do you write? How do you become a writer? You know, I have a dream. Someone says, I have a dream of writing a book. How do you become a writer? And the answer is you start writing, right? And you don't want to do the editing then. You want to actually flow. And this is probably with most creative things in life. You want to let that flow and get it all out there and come up with your crazy good ideas and get those into the process. But then at the end, when you've got it all out there, that's when you go through and you fine-tune detail work, right? And that's what makes it special. That's what takes it from a B to an A to an A+. Right?
And then you start reading the book and the stories for you, every word.
Yes.
For me, it's like if I write a sentence, it must be consumable as, well, like sweets. Put it into your mouth and it immediately is inhaled and inserted into your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively easy to write something that's long, right? Just takes you for, you can type your thoughts and your ideas, etc., and you put no real, you don't put a lot of thought into it. You just flow forever. You don't put much structure to it, but you have to go back and say, is there a reason why this is in there? You're right. My books are short, and they're short for a reason, because I know that people have a limited amount of time. And I don't want them to have to spend 20 hours going through this to get the life-changing inspiration. And so every word, every sentence have to have a point. Otherwise, it shouldn't be in there.
So let's go back before you started being an author. How did your life go on? So in your childhood and youth, you were working and you tried to earn money, and
I did.
And you worked as a waiter for a long time.
Yeah. I've done every crazy job probably that you can do. I swear, it
what
would
kind
be
of jobs
in and of itself. Yeah. So I was. My goal was to become a pilot, actually. And funny enough, I wanted to become a pilot because I knew that pilots had a lot of time off. I knew that they could get free airline tickets, and I knew they made pretty good money. And all of that really coalesced because what I wanted to do more than anything else was to have a lot of time off and go travel the world. And that was what I understood was the only viable path to get there. And that's a really massive screw up on my part, but I didn't know any better. And I try and share that with people that now I realize, oh my gosh, like if you want to go travel the world, like there's a lot of other ways to do it. But I wasn't smart enough at the time, And so, I ended up working super hard and going to university and studying to be a pilot. I got a business degree on the side in case I ever got injured as a pilot. And then, I worked. I actually was one of the guys who flew traffic. I would fly in an airplane and this is back in the day, call in the traffic. Like, okay, we're on, this is so-and-so. We're on I-95 northbound going into Wisconsin. We've got a traffic from Maple Road up to 75th Street, right? And so I used to do all that stuff, but then I would work as a waiter in between and anything I could do to make it work. So, yeah. And then it all got taken away from me in a heartbeat, just like that.
It was the diagnosis of your heart. There was a heart issue. So you were in training. You were right before
I was beyond
ending.
training. I had graduated my university. I was beyond all my flight training. I had done an internship for free with the major airlines in America. I was selected as one of only 28 students in the entire country to get this internship. And I was
just right at the start.
I literally was envisioning myself as the youngest captain in this airline's history, driving a Corvette with the top down, living the dream. Right?
Wow. And then?
So I go to the interview, and there's a 2-part interview. One of the parts is medical. I come back from the interview, I get a phone call, and they said, you failed the medical. How did I fail the medical? What are you talking about, right? So there's this test they never gave people until they were in their late 30s. But if you're going to interview for the airlines, you take it early. And I failed the test. Now, the thing is about this, you got to this is so staggering. This only matters. It's like 1 out of every 100,000 people have this condition. And it only matters if you want to be a pilot or an astronaut. So what are the odds? Like, you have better odds of winning the lottery than being 1 out of 100,000 who has it, who also wants to be a pilot or an astronaut. So my whole world turned upside down. I was depressed. I was sad. For a year, this went on.
I mean, you're a very healthy looking person. I guess you're doing a lot of sports and And nobody would ever have the idea that you have any physical
no issue. Because it's such a unique medical condition that it only impacts you if you're in a free fall state. Right? And so it only would have mattered if I was in the airplane, we lost all engines and were plummeting to the earth, and there was a higher chance that I would black out than another person.
Oh no.
But this is this is where had I have taken that job, right? Had I have not failed that test, I never would have written a single book. And what a tragedy that would have been, because I love my life now.
Are you a pilot now? Do you fly?
No,
or
not
is
anymore.
it still not at all?
No.
So just small.
I could,
small
I mean, I could go rent an airplane and fly it around, but when that dream was gone, it was over. It was time to move to something else. Yeah.
And you quit. You totally quit.
Yeah, totally quit. I mean, I fly in airplanes now, but
Okay, but you never went to a cockpit again and took that and took off and said, well, that's my. Why not? So,
I don't. I mean, there was pain there for a year, right? So everything associated with that was painful, and then I suppose years later, when I had gotten beyond it, I was in a new life at that point, so it was over with. Yeah. And it's funny because when I used to be a pilot and people would tell me that, I'd be like, "What are you, crazy? Like, how do you not fly?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I did the same thing.
But it could have something to do with with your inner motive. Why you wanted to fly? You didn't want to fly because of flying.
Yeah, totally.
You wanted to fly in order to achieve something with that flying. So that flying, it didn't matter.
No.
So life showed you some signs that, well, okay,
right.
We know it hurts, but maybe you should go into a different direction.
Totally, and my sort of when I came out of that year, I was able to look at it from a more healthy perspective and say, you know what? Yeah, I was not one of those people who lived to fly. It would have been a travesty if it had been one of those people, right? For me, it was a significant bump in the road, but it wasn't a travesty. So better that it happened to me than to them, because they literally lived. They were like humans with wings. Like they lived and breathed that. So, yeah.
I wanted to become a pilot myself, just private, but I took all these rounds around the airfield alone. Was a student, and then my job went off, and I had to work. It was fantastic, and the next possibilities I tried to fly. I always was afraid of flying.
Yeah.
It was too much time between my flights, and so
there's a lot at stake. You're thousands of feet up in the air.
And I said, okay, that's not me. Yeah. I prefer my job. This is more important, not because I like working itself, but I love my job. I love what I do. So I said to quit flying.
Well, and that's it. You raise a great point there, and that is sometimes in life it's critical to allow yourself to try something instead of always wondering what might have been. And it's not because you're going to try it and it ends up being the masterpiece of your life. But sometimes you try it and realize it's actually not the masterpiece of your life. But I remember this was hilarious, not hilarious for the people, but hilarious in kind of conceptualizing it. That I met some people and they were telling me the story about a friend of theirs who their dream was to eventually get to retirement age, buy a camper, like a giant RV, and to drive around the country. And this is how they were going to spend the next 15 years of their life, right? Retire at 65, right? So they save and they save and they save and they save, and eventually they get to the retirement age. They go out and buy this beautiful camper. They're on the road 1 week, and they hate it, right? I mean, they hate it. So better would have been to try it for a week when you were 40, and realize that's actually not the dream, right? So better that you tried flying and you're like, yeah, really cool thing, but not as good as this. So I try and tell people when it comes to their big five for life, allow yourself to sample it and make sure that it really is what you're looking for.
It's fantastic because just your big five for life, it took me weeks to figure out my big five for life, because I'm very, very multilateral. I'm interested in so many things.
Yeah.
And one of my points in life is what I love being at home.
Okay.
And I love movement. Okay. I love traveling around, and so actually I travel around with my motorhome.
So there you go.
So that's
great solution.
That's the perfect combination of these two motives. Yeah.
Yes.
So I could say, okay, on the one hand, it's okay. I am at home, but not at home. Yeah. I'm on my road.
So I love that, because I think part of the big five for life becoming a reality is allowing yourself to be creative also. Yeah. And one of the things that we do, you mentioned the duration of time it takes to find it, and people always ask me, what's the path to finding your big five for life? Depends on the person, right? I took a year and backpacked around the world. That opened me up in ways I could have never imagined before that. Some people like yourself, you take weeks, you're thinking about it, processing it, the rest of that. Other people who go through a course, they figure it out in 2 days. Everybody's different, right? But the point is to allow yourself to be creative and thinking the way in which you could blend two realities like you did. I like being at home, but I like traveling, right? And when you get creative solutions, it's even better than the one or the other, and that's what's cool.
Yeah, I hate hotels.
Yeah, see, that's great. You
The
honored
moment-
that
the
part
mo-
of
the
yourself.
The moment I enter a hotel, I want to leave. Just leave.
Right.
But I don't want that bed here. I don't want to sleep here. I don't like that bathroom.
And there's someone else who would love to, like, they would
Yeah.
love to spend their entire life living in a hotel,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's the beauty of our existence. We get to pick that.
So you had this depression state for 1 year. You came out, and then you became a consultant. Is that right?
Yeah, so crazy cool story a little bit before that in terms of the way that the universe sometimes gives you a gift back or sets you on your path, maybe is a better way to think of it. And so, yeah, this pilot dream was absolutely yanked out of my control, and through nothing I had done, right? And I had worked so hard to get there. I mean, I can't even describe to you how many hours it took me to earn the money to go, how many hours I worked at school, and then it was gone just like that. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And so for a year, yeah, I went through this depression. Eventually, I got a recommendation that I should think about going to business school. When I graduated college, I was like, I'm never going back to school, right? Never. But the guy was like, seriously, you should really think about it. And so I applied to this particular university because it was where I was working by then. And they said, no, you can't go, right? And I was like, well, why not? So they said you could send in a letter and ask why you were denied. So I sent in a letter, and they came back and they said, well, you're denied because you didn't have enough practical work experience, right? So I sent back this scathing letter, right? This was the biggest screw you letter ever, right?
Wow.
But you have to understand where I was at the time, right? Everything that had gone horribly wrong and yanked out. But so I sent back this letter, and I was basically like, you have no concept of what it is like to be a pilot. You don't know what it's like to have people's lives at stake as you are under the controls. The windshield is covered in ice, your wings are covered in ice, and you have to manage 40-mile gusts of wind, right? So it was this whole, like, you don't know what I've been dealing with letter. And I think it was just cathartic. I was just getting it out of my system, right? I sent it never, ever expecting to hear anything back. And 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail saying, you're in for the fall to this school. So I go to my very first class, right? And again, I applied to this university because it was where I was already doing some work. I go to my very first class, and the people are always like, are talking about like, we're number one, we're number one. I'm like, what are we number one at, right? And I was Northwestern's Kellogg Business School. We were the number one ranked business school in the country.
Whoa.
I didn't even know they ranked them.
Whoa.
Yeah. So here I was so completely clueless about that, and the universe handed me that one back.
Jackpot.
Right? Jackpot. Yes, complete jackpot. And that set my life on a trajectory, which in large part is why I am where I am today. So,
Wow.
yeah, crazy cool.
So then you understood business.
Yeah.
You understood, well, okay,
Yeah.
I have something more than just flying.
Yeah.
Just flying.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you quit your job in 2002.
I did, yeah. So I did. I was working as a consultant at a job that I was very good at. I would get a call on a Friday night, and they'd say, hey, we need you in Des Moines, Iowa on Monday morning, and you need to be an expert in large-scale farm equipment, right? And so I was very good at getting super smart about something I knew nothing about very quickly, and being able to walk into a senior management or board of director meeting with some really good ideas about the way that they could maximize their business. And it's because I was creative. I could say, well, I saw this in the corrugated boxes industry, and in radio they do like this, right? And I worked for a great company, an amazing leader, but I didn't have the heart connection to the work, And so, very strange set of circumstances. This was the economic downturn at that time. Everything was going on, and I was able to take a furlough action through the company. I was actually forced on furlough through a strange set of circumstances. And I went off and backpacked around the world for a year. And when I came back, that's when I was inspired to write Das Café.
That's an interesting point. At what age were you at that time? When you said, okay, I was successful, I could have had the chance to go on with that job life.
Yeah.
I think you were married at that time as well, yeah?
Yeah, I had, that was actually sort of funny in that my wife and I literally were just about to get married when I got the call saying, like, you're being forced on furlough with this.
So the usual life would be, well, this is the setting, the perfect setting.
Yes.
Good job, good, where everything perfect.
Absolutely.
Let's settle down and earn money and get into the...
Yes.
For the next 20, 30, 40 years.
You know what, though? You know what's cool is that I had mentally planned that in October of that year I was going to go quit.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And when I quit, I was going to go travel around the world. And this is another interesting example of sometimes where the universe enables you to get where you want to go, but it actually gets you there faster if you get out of your own way. And so I had planned on quitting in October of that year, and this was in February, and I got the call saying you'll be forced on furlough, and they said, we'll give you partial pay, full benefits, and just hang out, and we hope to call you back sometime in the future and bring you back on board. The economy never recovered, I never got the call to come back, but basically I got paid a fraction of my salary, but more than enough to backpack around the world, and that was our honeymoon for a year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And by the way, for anybody who's watching this, if you really want to figure out whether your relationship's ever going to work or not, on your honeymoon, go backpack around the world on $40 a day. And if you can make that work, you can probably make it work. 11-hour bus rides in Thailand and sleeping on the floor on a dirt thing in the remote regions of China, it'll definitely test you, but so well worth it.
Wow. And your marriage is still existing.
Yes, we're still there. So.
Yeah, and this is one of your big five for life is your relationship and your daughter. And
yes, a loving relationship with the people that matter to me is critical. And you know, you get, when you love, you were saying how much you love your job, and I do too. I love what I do. And so when you love what you do, it's not the traditional, I'm going off to work, I hate it, and I can't wait to come home, but I still have to be there till 8 o'clock at night. It's, I love what I do, and I'm so excited about the projects we're doing. And when you also make this dedication to have a loving relationship with your significant others or the people who matter to you, it's about pushing back from the table, from the work that you love, to go play wiffle ball in the driveway with the daughter that you love, right? And so it's good to have a clear understanding of what your big five for life are and the ways in which you actually fulfill them, or it's easy to get out of sync.
Wow, so you traveled the world for 9 months, and what happened then? And after that you had this transformation into somebody who knew how life worked.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've got it all figured out now, but it definitely gave me the opportunity to see the world in a completely different way and open my mind in countless themes and ideas. I had an amazing experience on a train in China where I lost all fear of everything.
How was it?
Well, so I had a traumatic childhood experience when I was about 5 or 6 years old, something that I'd long forgotten. And here I am backpacking around the world, and I'm on this train in China. It's 10 o'clock at night. And in China at the time, when it hit 10 o'clock, it was literally like 9:59, all the lights are on, 10 o'clock, everything goes off. Just like, there's no warning, there's nothing. And you have nothing to do except lay there in your bunk. And it's, 3 bunks and clickety-clack, clickety-clack. And I'm laying there in my bunk, and I have all these thoughts coming to me, and it's memories from my past. And I remember laying there in the bunk and asking the question, why are all these thoughts coming to me, right? And it was like being in a movie all of a sudden, flash, my focal point, and I'm in this moment when I was 5 or 6 years old, which I didn't even remember. And so I had this vivid recollection of the moment, but now I was the viewer watching the moment, right? And it was a situation where I was being punished for something, something that was not my fault or that I could have never changed, right? And in that moment, because I was supposed to do something that which could not be done, it was a task that was given to me that could not be accomplished through no fault of my own. And I knew as a small child that if I came back up the stairs and the task was not accomplished, that there would be yelling and screaming and door slamming and who knew what else after that, right? And it was weird because as I was in the train having this memory and watching it, I could see that little boy at 5 or 6, and he was at the base of the stairs and he was crying, right? Because he couldn't go upstairs, but he couldn't stay in the basement forever either. And the whole recollection of the memory came back to me, and it made it instantly apparent that for the next 30 years or however many, 26 years after that, I would operate between a fear of success and a fear of failure. And that seems so weird to people, right? Because they're like, how can you have a fear of success and a fear of failure? But what it manifests is you will only take on things that you know you can be good at. Mm-hmm. And you will only do them up to the point where you push greatness. Because in order to get to greatness, you have to fail, right? And so in my everyday lives, people would have said, that's insane. Like, you're successful in your business, you're a successful athlete. But I never pushed the next level beyond that. I would always disengage when I thought there was a chance of failure. So I'm on this train in China, I have this moment of epiphany, and I kid you not, it was the most profound thing. I see this little boy, I see all the ways this has impacted my life, and just like that, every fear I've ever had went away. It was crazy, it was cool.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And from that point, you said you allowed yourself to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Because the fear was gone.
Fear was gone, yeah.
And up to that point, I mean, there's a pattern. Maybe there's a pattern. do what other people expect me to do.
Yeah.
Be a part of the game of other people, not
Yeah.
be a part of my game.
Sure.
And then you are in the train of China, you see yourself as a boy and so, no, that's not my game.
Yeah. Now here's the cool piece of that story, right? Because it's easy to assign blame to the people who helped cause that situation. But my personal life philosophy is that the experience of our 28,900 days, or hopefully a little more if we get that, is that we are here to learn. We are here to grow. And so I think I wrote about this in Safari des Lebens, that I view life as sort of like a bunch of giant like train boards where you're looking at destinations, but instead of destinations, you're picking challenges you would like to deal with while you're in your human form. So I want to have a fear of failure. I want to have a lack of self-confidence. I want to have people who don't believe in me. I want to, whatever, right? And then you're born and you have no idea what you picked off the big board, but part of the goal of life is to figure this out, right? And in order for you to have these experiences which help manifest that reality, there has to be people who play a particular role, right? So had someone not been that authority figure creating that moment for that 5-year-old boy, I would not have had this opportunity to deal with a fear of failure and a fear of success. So this is important because not necessarily that you want to stay with these people, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to stay in the environment that's uncomfortable or toxic. But it's okay to ask the question, what have I learned from this experience? And what am I grateful that I learned from this experience? And now I will move on, right? Because otherwise you can spend your whole life blaming people for creating the reality, and all we're doing is looking backwards.
So if something bad happens, you can say, well, let it go. There will be a reason for that, and you will see it afterwards. Like the famous speech of Steve Jobs connecting the dots, living forward, understanding backwards.
And don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound Pollyanna about it, that, oh, don't worry, right? You just spent a year in a coma. Hey, it's okay, just everything will be okay, and find the reason and move forward, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's unrealistic, especially given some of the things we go through as human beings. But again, the more we can operate from that place of inquisitiveness, one of my favorite expressions is, why is this happening to me? Mm-hmm. Right? But if we ask it as, why is this happening to me?
Then you are a victim.
Now I'm a victim, right?
Sure.
But if I can get myself to the place where I can, with pure heart, I can ask, why is this happening to me? Now it's a whole different game. I can learn from that moment. I can grow from it. I can make sure I don't make the same mistake again, right? Because what if I enter a toxic relationship with someone and I feel bad about myself, I feel physically abused or mentally or emotionally abused? If I don't learn, it's not enough that I leave the relationship. I'm just going to enter another one that's just like it, right? So that's kind of the way I play in this space.
Wow. And so you came back and you wrote the book.
Yeah.
This is why we're here, Café. In Deutsch, das Café am Rande der Welt.
Yeah, it's such a great title they came up with, the Café at the Edge of the World. Yeah. I love that title.
But it was difficult for you to find a publisher for the book. You wrote the book and then, Yeah,
so this was sort of an interesting little life experience too, in that I had this stream of conscious typing experience that lasted for 21 days, which is how the book came to be. I literally sat down at a desk, started typing, and it just flowed.
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Yeah,
okay, wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that, I printed it out, put it on a shelf, and it looked like a book, it felt like a book. And because of my consulting experience, this ability to, within 72 hours, get super smart about something, I was like, well, it looks like a book, it feels like a book, maybe I should turn it into a book, right? So literally within 3 days, I knew, okay, there's 3 ways to turn it into a book. I either sell it to a publisher, I do what was called, I think print on demand back then or something like that, or I start a publishing company, right? Okay, I know how to start a company, I'll start a company, right? And so I think it was only like 8-10 weeks after that, something like that, I had it up on Amazon. I was already selling books. And I was so completely clueless about what I was doing, right? But sometimes that's a good thing. And so I was like, oh, how big should the book be? I took my favorite book off the bookshelf, this little book called Illusions. I measured it with a ruler. I was like, all right, 7.25 by 4.5, perfect, right? I measured the margin. Hey, 1/2-inch margins. We'll make mine 1/2-inch margins. and I guess looking back now, this is what I love about life's possibilities, right? You heard me talking yesterday about it's not about how do I do it, it's about who, right? Who's already published a book? Well, what can I learn from them? How can I accelerate this process, right? So yeah, I did that, and then after 1 year, I had taken orders with a horrible website that I designed myself that was absolutely abysmal. I had taken orders from 24 different countries because word of mouth was somehow spreading. Wow. I had no idea where people were learning about this. And then I got picked up by an agent out of New York, and that's what started to spread it internationally. And yeah, the story now we're in 41 languages. So yeah, and I ended up taking it back. I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I ended up taking the rights back, and so now I do it on my own in the States, but I have unbelievable relationships in other countries.
So this is so fantastic because I see some parallels between us.
Yeah.
My first book I published myself as well because I couldn't find a publisher.
Yeah.
I was rejected by I think 35 publishers, and
Yeah.
I printed it myself. It was one of the last money I had at that time, and I put it into the book, and then I put it to Amazon and all that, and,
Yeah.
and suddenly people started ordering the book, and it was a fantastic experience. And I went to the book fair. And I went to the publishers. You want to publish my book? Want to publish?
Yeah.
And then on the fourth day, the last, they said, okay, let's try. And 1 year after that, it was one of the most successful books at this publisher.
Yeah.
And so I see the parallel. You start, you don't know if you are successful.
Yeah.
You go there and you go the whole way, and you
Totally.
love your product because
Yes.
this is what I did at that time. I feel when you talk about it, I loved every single word of what
Yes.
I wrote.
Yeah, nobody's gonna love it like you do, right? It's your baby.
Yeah.
And so that, and I think this is a great point to people who have a creative dream, a creative vision, or have even any of their big five for life that they're looking to do, see, or experience. People are going to tell you no, right? And it's for a variety of reasons. It's either their own insecurities, or maybe it's just a bad fit for them. But I bet you I have gotten over 200 rejections from publishers around the world. 200. Right?
200.
I got a rejection letter when the book was already on the bestseller list. Somebody had not gotten around to it, and over the course of a year later, they're like going through books, and they're like, I don't think anybody's gonna buy this. It's already on the bestseller list, right? So my point is that you can't take it personal. You just have to keep moving forward. Constructive criticism is great, right? I mean, it's irrational to just get out there with a crummy product and think, no, it's better than anything you've ever seen before. But if you're getting great feedback from your readers and they're telling you there's something really special here, don't get too upset because other people are telling you no. It doesn't matter at that point.
It was very strange at that time. My journey, suddenly there was orders coming from all over the German area, from Austria, from Vienna, from Kiel, and I said, how did that book get there?
I know. Well, that is the wonderful energy that books have. I can't tell you the amount of times people have said to me, I was walking through the bookstore and it fell off the shelf in front of me. Or I was walking to the bookstore, I picked it up off the table, and then I just couldn't put it down. I don't know why I couldn't put it down, right? So I think what's cool is that there is this energetic thing where the book is finding the reader, not always that the reader is finding the book. And if you have a story inside of you and you don't release it, that can never happen, right? So you had the courage to turn it into a book and see what happens.
Wow, I love that. And then a new existence as an author was born. So you started writing, I think, how many books? Six, seven?
I've written 10 now.
10,
yeah,
okay,
and I have a third cafe book coming out in October, so that'll be released at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow,
super psyched about that. Yeah.
Wow. So can you tell us something about the Big Five for Life?
Yeah.
Which is a different book?
The Genesis. So this is a book that I wrote. I've written two in that series. One is, the first title is The Big Five for Life, and then the sequel is The Big Five for Life Continued. The genesis of that book was to say, what would the world look like in the eyes of the most unbelievable leader in the world? And so I wrote it from that perspective, and I set the context in the opening page that the main character, who we're going to get to know, Thomas, is dying.
Why is he dying?
Yeah, so he's 55 years old, and we learn in the opening that he's dying of a brain tumor. And then over the course of the 240 pages, we come to love this man and everything he stands for and the type of human he's chosen to be and the way he treats his people and the way he works with his customers. And then he dies, and it's an emotional moment, as we were talking about earlier. But I wrote it in that context because I think one of the mistakes we sometimes make in our lives is it's going so fast and so much is going on that we forget it's not going to last forever. And this concept of mortality is good to understand and think about. Like we talked about earlier, you get 28,900 days statistically. Every one of those days is precious, but only if we sort of apply preciousness to it. And I was super psyched about the book. That one also got rejected by countless publishers. But it has been the #1 best-selling leadership and self-development book in Germany now for over 5.5 years on Amazon. Yeah. And that's consecutive. It's never fallen off of #1.
It's incredible.
I mean,
the story is incredible. Okay, so he dies at the end of the book,
Yeah.
but he touched very many lives in a positive way.
Absolutely.
He creates a culture
Yeah.
of the Big Five for life. What is this culture? What does it mean? The
Yeah,
Big
so
Five?
the very short version of what the Big Five for Life concept is it's identifying the 5 things that you most want to do, see, or experience in your lifetime before you die. The 5 things that if you did so or experience them, that you could say that your life was a success by your own definition of success. And this is not something we learn in school. You learn to read, you learn to write, you learn arithmetic, all great stuff. At the same time, what tends to be missing in our everyday lives is this certainty about this is actually the direction I want my life to go. This is what I want to fill my life with. And when you know your Big Five for life, if you have the courage to start allocating your time, your energy, your resources, financial and otherwise, towards these Big Five for life, you find that life takes on a whole new flavor, a whole new feeling, and you feel much more fulfilled and happy. So, in the context of leadership, it's allowing yourself as a leader to not just treat the people who work for you as peons, but to see them as a human being, right? And to know what their Big Five for life are, and to ask the question, if we work collaboratively so that this is your job, in what way is that going to actually enable you to get paid to fulfill your Big Five for life? And if it's not, I don't want to hire you, or I don't want to hire you for that job, right? And that is a whole different paradigm than I think work historically has been. But we're seeing more and more of this. And the reason we're seeing more of it is because the best and the brightest people, and I've met some amazing people in your company, right? And they are spectacularly talented, and they are outgoing, and they are personable, and wicked smart, and
Are you
very
talking
good.
about my company?
Yes.
Yeah.
And very good at
Please,
what they do.
everybody here in my company, in our company.
Yes.
We love our company. We love our team.
Yes.
Did you feel that?
I felt that from the very first person I talked
great.
to, which theoretically could have been an anomaly, but it wasn't. It was everybody I talked to.
It means a lot to me that you say that.
Yes.
It really means a lot to me.
And so what that tells me is that within this organization, you all look at each other not just as coworkers, not as boss-employee, but you look at each other as human beings working towards some collective goals. Ideally, I know every company has identified the company's Big Five for life and the PFE, the purpose for existing. Why is the company existing, right? And that people's personal Big Five for life are intertwined and connected to the company's. And that is what makes it such a great place to work. People treat each other as human beings. They see each other as authentically human. And that's why it works so well. And the coolest thing about this is what I love. The best and the brightest, which is where I started this, the best and the brightest refuse to work in environments other than that.
Yeah.
Right? So what ends up happening is the top companies who employ this type of philosophy because they want to, not because it's the flavor of the day, but because they want to, they end up getting the best and the best talent. Well, of course, if you have the best of the best talent, it's like stacking your sports team with all the all-stars. You're going to win.
That's great. That's it. Yeah.
And so these companies, your company, is going to win and be more successful. And I love that because I like it when the good guys and good girls win, right?
You know what? At the beginning of the interview, you told me about your job, your consultant job, and you quit that job. And I meet so many people who stay in that job, and then just life goes on, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and they lose their passion, they lose their meaning of life. They get getting cynical. They are waiting for something to happen, and well, life's just full of routine and of the question, was that all?
Yeah, they're waiting to retire until they get their pension.
Yeah.
I had a guy tell me one time, I've only got 7. I said, we're talking about something, and he was unhappy about his job, and I said, how long you been there? I don't know, 20-some years. Are you gonna stay? To me, it was like, why aren't you leaving and doing something else, right? But he was like, I've only got 7 more years until my pension kicks in. I was like, 7 more years. Like, that is a long time, right? And again, everybody should do whatever they feel like. So if that was the right decision in his mind, perfect. Do that, right? But I think it's awesome to realize it doesn't have to be like that. And especially when you're young and just starting your career, right? Why not start in a place that's awesome?
Tell me something about your concept of life, of the days of life being like a museum.
Yeah, so this is something I introduced in the Big Five for Life book, this concept of museum day. And the idea is that what if we were to think of our life in this context, that every moment of our life was recorded. The things we did, the things we saw, the things we said. And at the end of our life, a museum is built to show our life. And so, if 80% of your time was like this guy spent at a job that he hated, then literally that would be 80% of your museum. Videos, kiosks, pictures, everything, right? And let's say he loved hiking or playing softball with his kids, right? But he was always at work he hated, and so he only spent 2% of his life on the things that he loved. Then all you get in your museum is just a few pictures of that. And then imagine on the next level that this is actually the way you are going to spend all of eternity, is the tour guide for your own museum, right? And what I love about this concept is the ways that it enables people to think in a totally different paradigm about their life, right? Because they start to look at the wings of their museum and say, oh my gosh, like I would hate to spend an hour, let alone a lifetime, let alone eternity in that wing, right? And so my goal is always to try and help people move their life in the direction they want to go. Ideally through something that, as you said, is somewhat short, easy to understand, and yet life-changing in concept. And I'm happy to say that I think Museum Day is one of the ones that really checks the boxes on that.
You seem to be like a very, well, how do you say? Well, a person who knows who you are. You know who you are. From the very moment I saw you yesterday, you are friendly, you are kind, you are cool, you know what you do, you're clear, you're okay. Is there anything in your life? Is there anything that you need to overcome, or what you are afraid of, or what is your next step of personal development?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am far, far from my own version of what I would like to be as a human being. I'm constantly in a state of growth for the metrics that I set for myself, let alone anybody else's metrics. I will say that the certainty with which I can be authentically myself now is drastically different than who I used to be. I used to be very uncomfortable in my own skin. I had confidence in certain aspects of my life because I was a very good athlete. I knew that I was capable of high academic success with the way that I could understand concepts, but I had a very low self-esteem. I had a very low perception of myself as a human being and perhaps my role in it as the human experience goes. And that has changed over time. It's something that I've been able to grow into. And I think the reason I've been able to grow into it is because I was busy trying to fulfill other people's versions of what I should be like. And when I finally allowed myself to be me, and to do the things that I liked to do and was good at, and to let go of the fears. We talk about that experience on the train. I could never be the person I am now. I could not have walked on stage yesterday with 15,000 people, and I'm the guy on stage after President Barack Obama if I still had low self-esteem and a low perception of my value to add. Right?
And is there any goal you didn't achieve yet? I think you wanted to write a song. You wanted to be
Yeah. So number 5 on my Big Five for Life list is to write a song that breaks the top 10 of the pop charts. Yeah, and it's funny because people ask me all the time about this. I'm like, how's it going, right? And it's not that I am not passionate about it. I am. I just continually get the sense that when it's the right time, it's the right time. And I do a lot of creative work with words, as you know. Yeah. And I've written other stuff which is really funny, I think, song-wise, but it's not that song. But I'm working on the movie deal for Das Café.
Okay, wow.
And so a lot of people have been like, dude, this is the time for the song. Put it in the movie, right? Yeah. And I may do that. So I have lots of really good ideas about what it could be. But I will tell you an amazing story about that. So I was doing an interview with a radio personality here in Germany, and she and I were bantering back and forth, having a great time, just like you and I are. And she was like, where's the song, right? And she was a DJ, and she said, if you had that song right now, I would put it on the air in the next 30 minutes. And I thought this is such a great example of the power of the Big Five for life and about allowing yourself to be authentic. Because how many artists would love to get their song on radio even one time? I mean, less now because they're streaming, but back in the day when it was just pure radio, right? And here this woman was willing to do that for me just because she knew that it was one of the things that most mattered to me. And this is important because I used to have a hard time asking people for help, right? When people needed help, I wanted to do that. But when it came time to ask for help, I really struggled with that. And so this was such a great example that other people want to help you, especially when it's fulfilling one of your Big Five for life. So don't hesitate to ask. Like, allow yourself to get out there and ask.
To ask and to show your Big Five for life.
Totally.
To be clear who you are, you want to be, what you want to achieve, and tell people. And then suddenly doors open and they say, hey, come in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes to people are looking to change companies and work for different jobs, right? So like we were talking about, people love working in this company. And so people sometimes come to me and they're like, John, like, I want to change jobs. Can you help me find a job? I'm like, absolutely not. All right, absolutely not. And they're like, why? Like, you like to help people. I'm like, I do like to help people, but I'm not going to help you find a job, right? Yeah. You tell me what you're excited about in life. You tell me what your Big Five for life are. I will help you find a way to get paid for doing that, but I will not help you find a job.
Great.
Right? Yeah.
John, we're just talking almost 1 hour. Could go on forever.
I know, we're just starting to scrape the surface. There's so much good things to talk about.
So, okay. If I would invite you to come back one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. My goal is to make a difference in the lives of other human beings in a positive way.
Our goal is to grow more, bigger, become a bigger platform, reach more people, and.
I don't think of it in terms of volume necessarily, because I think, as a perfect example, some of the one-on-one conversations I had yesterday at the event with people were every bit as important to me as having the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who will see this video, right? So I do my very best to remain focused on just making a difference in the lives of others without getting caught up in the size of the platform or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if we have an opportunity to sit together again and talk, I would love to do that.
The size of the platform is very interesting because I don't know how it is in the USA, but in Germany, personal development is many people are interested in it, but they need to find the platform. Yeah. They need to find the way in. This is why we are so much pushing it, and why we want to grow, because we want to open as many doors as possible to people who don't know yet that we exist. So therefore, yesterday, for example, I think half of the audience was never at a Gedankentanken event before, and they came because of Barack Obama.
Right.
But they enjoyed the rest as well. They said, wow, this is interesting, that was cool, or what he told us, I must think about it. So, and this is what we want to achieve. So we want to spread good Gedanken, good thoughts into the world.
Yeah, that's great. And you have some great platforms to do it. You do it with your big live events, you do it with videos like this. And I think that, again, is the spirit of everything that I teach, is allowing everybody to find the way in which they want to be fantastic at what they do. Because for someone else, honestly, it could be that they write poetry and they put it up on their blog post and they have 12 followers and they're happy with that. And the 12 followers are happy with that. And that's awesome, because that's what they wanted to do, right? So you have passion about yours and the way in which you want to do it, fantastic. Everybody else has their own different version, and we all can appreciate and endorse each other, and that's phenomenal.
Wow. And now you tell me that you could imagine to come back.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely love to. Love to.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.